So, ahead of the 75th Republic Day, we have a lot to talk about as far as India's armed forces are concerned, whether it is indigenization, whether it is, of course, the recently very busy period as far as the Indian Navy is concerned with operations in the Red Sea, in the Gulf of Aden, and of course, we will also be talking about Indo-French cooperation because the chief of guest for this year's Republic Day is the French President. Joining us now for this very special interview is a very special guest, the Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Hari Kumar. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview on Republic Day Eve for us. Chief, let me start off by asking you, it is the 75th Republic Day. Obviously for the Navy it is a big occasion. What is special as far as the naval contingent is concerned this time around?
This time our naval contingent is consisting of Agniveers, purely Agniveers, 50% women, 50% men. So introduction of the Agniveers scheme we have found it very good for the Navy. The type of personnel we are getting is of very high quality, and this is in keeping with the changing times. And this is the first time we had introduced women in the ranks. So that's been a great step that we have taken. And we find that the enthusiasm, commitment, and competence of the women Agniveers is at par, if not better. The first time we have taken, we got about 272 of them. Now this is the third batch which we have inducted, where the numbers have gone up to almost 454 or so. So it's a substantial increase, and as of today, we have close to 1,100 women in the ranks.
Wow.
So which is a substantial number, which has happened in just 1 year. This in line with the Nari Shakti policy of the Government of India.
I do want to talk to you about the Nari Shakti policy because I believe one of the contingents, part of the Navy as part of the Tri-Services contingent, is going to be entirely women.
That's right.
So
yeah.
Where did that come from, and what is the emphasis as far as Nari Shakti is concerned? You said Agniveers are going to make up an entire contingent this time around as far as the Navy contingent is concerned. Even in that, I believe half of them are women.
So, as I said, the purely Navy contingent is also Agniveers, 50% men and 50% women Agniveers. In the Tri-Service contingent as well, it's a contingent from all the three services with women contingent. So in that we have 48 women Agniveers participating. So it just shows that how all the three services have evolved towards being more inclusive and being gender neutral in many ways. As far as the Navy is concerned, we've had inducted our first women officer in 1993. So it's now 30 years down the line, and it was initially restricted to just a few branches like logistics and air traffic control and so on. Then subsequently it was expanded to education, and in 2008 we had women air operations officers also being inducted, and then we had the first women pilot in about 2016. Now we have women NDA cadets as well, and as of now we have opened all branches for officers to participate, and even for the women sailors as well, all branches are open. Our mantra is all roles, all ranks.
I believe recently, and you mentioned this in your first answer as well, recently a woman officer was promoted as the commanding officer of a warship.
Right. She's been appointed and she'll take over in a month's time or so.
So this whole idea, and we hear this in all services, all three services, that there are certain roles that women can't perform, and you're saying all roles, all ranks. How does that fit in?
Yeah, at least in the Navy we found that they can fit into every single role. In fact, people had doubts whether they can do the job of marine commandos and or whether they can operate in submarines. But I'm convinced these are arms which are where you need volunteers. Firstly, you got to have the aptitude. Secondly, you need to volunteer for it. So if someone is willing to volunteer and somebody is fit enough to either be a marine commander or a submariner, then
why not?
Why not?
I do want to talk about something that you had mentioned some months ago about Atmanirbharta Navy by 2047. Where is the progress of that project? What are still the impediments that are there by way of full indigenization of the naval weapon systems?
So we are completely aligned with the Atmanirbhar program of the Government of India. Navy historically has been working towards being a Atmanirbhar force because there's a saying that navies cannot be bought; they have to be built. So our forefathers had already initiated this process of indigenization, and we started with in 1960s with a small patrol boat, and then gradually it moved on from there to corvette, to frigate, to destroyer, and finally it culminated in the aircraft carrier being built in India. Moment of great pride for us because hardly 5 or 6 countries in the world can build aircraft carriers and operate them. So this is a great achievement for us. Now, when you build a warship, there are 3 components to it. It is to float, to move, and to fight. So in the float component, essentially it is the steel, the hull, the compartments, and so on. So we have now indigenized the steel. It is DMR 249 Alpha and Bravo steel, which is made in India by SAIL, Midani, and the Navy together. So this steel is being used now. We are not importing any steel for warship construction.
Okay.
So about 95% indigenization been achieved in the float component. Then you come to the move component, where it involves the shafting, the propellers, the engines, control systems, and so on. So that is where we are at somewhere around 65% or so. The prime movers are yet to be made in India, which is diesel engines of 12 megawatt and above, then gas turbines, gas turbine generators, and so on. So therefore, our focus now is on getting these made. We have already initiated make projects for these with companies like Kirloskar and Bharat Forge and all that. So work is happening in that direction. The third component, of course, is the fight component.
Yeah.
So in the fight component, we are somewhere around 55% or so. Many weapons and sensors are being made in India, like the BrahMos missiles and smaller caliber guns and so on. But what we are looking at is the air defense systems, the radars, the combat management system, and things like that. So a lot of focus is on that for getting those missile systems and all that to be made in India.
One of the things that is, of course, some would say, you talked about aircraft carriers, the pinnacle would be the IAC-2, and you have talked about the indigenous aircraft carrier 2. What is the progress on that project as far as?
So I just want to clarify that IAC-2 was a different project which was conceived of as a larger aircraft carrier of about 65,000 tons plus, with a catapult launch facility and arresting gear and all that. So as of now, we are not looking at that. We are quite happy with what we have made in India, the IAC-1 Vikrant, and it has cleared its initial operational clearance. We are going on to the final operation clearance shortly, and we find it is a good platform, which will be effective at sea. So we are now, we are now looking at a repeat order of this, because it is the skill set is available, the infrastructure is available. You don't have to create anything new.
Yeah.
So before the skill is lost, we are very keen on taking it forward. And essentially, what will happen is, from the time you place the order, it will take anything up to 10 years to make an aircraft carrier, and then another couple of years to operationalize it fully, and so on. So by which time it will be almost time for Vikramaditya to retire or reach the end of service life. So therefore, it will essentially be a replacement for Vikramaditya as of now. And therefore the urgency to sort of and it is cleared the DPB, and we are looking at taking it forward to the DSC subsequently.
Since you mentioned indigenization, and also in the first part of the answers we talked about the French flavor of the Republic Day, because the French president is going to be the chief guest. What can you tell us about some of these deals that have been long in the making? People have been talking about it, the 26 Rafale Marine fighters, the Scorpions. Is there anything expected around this visit and around this Republic Day?
No particular announcement, because already the AON has been accorded for the Rafale M as well as for the 3 repeat orders of the Scorpions. So the DAC has already given acceptance of necessity, and now work is on to sort of get the bids and the cost estimates and work towards getting the contract signed. So work is in progress in this regard with the Rafales as well as the 3 repeat order Scorpions. So the repeat order obviously will be built by MDL, and that is the work that is.
Do you have any timelines for when you expect?
Hopefully it should get done in this year, because we are looking at induction of the Rafales in by 2027 or so, or maybe 28, because it takes time from the time of signing the contract. It will take at least 36 months for the first aircraft to come, and then it has to do trials on board, Vikrant and so on. So you may ask as to, while talking of Atmanirbharta, why are you talking of, getting, Rafales from outside? Essentially, it is, as a stopgap. That's what we're looking at. And the MiG-29s also will gradually, finish their service life. So this is a stopgap for the time we are looking at the twin-engine deck-based fighter,
correct,
which is going to be made in India. And this is purely going to be based upon the lessons that you've learned from the LCA Navy, and you would have seen the pictures of LCA Navy landing on Vikrant as well. So a lot of data points have been collected, and and we have made the staff requirement for the TEDBF, and we're very confident that it will be a fifth generation fighter. It will have a lot of similarity with the AMCA. Many of the systems which are being developed for AMCA will also fit into this aircraft. So that will essentially be the sort of a next generation fighter aircraft, which will remain with the Navy.
So you talked about the LCA, the naval prototype. We saw the landing as well, and you talked about the TEDBF as well. What is the assessment of the Navy in terms of, again, timelines on the progress of this project? Because, like you said, indigenization is not an easy or a relatively small process. It's a lengthy process. So what is the timeline that you're looking at?
So we are, in case we are able to get the approvals through in time, sometime this year, then maybe by 2028 we hope to see the first prototype, and then production may start by 2032 or 33, and then it'll go on for the next 10-15 years, to build up the requisite numbers. But 57 is the number that we're looking at as of now.
57?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the stuff that's happened recently. The Indian Navy has been in the news in the Gulf of Aden, in the Red Sea. You've seen these anti-piracy operations. You've seen these attacks by the Houthis, some of the ships, merchant vessels that were threatened. What are you doing? What is the Indian Navy doing to protect Indian ships, or even commercial ships that are carrying Indian flags or Indian crew, to try and protect the sea lanes?
See, firstly, I want to tell you that, is the Indian Navy's charter to protect, preserve, promote and pursue Bharat's national interests anywhere in the maritime domain. So therefore, we are very clear about what is our, task and what we are expected to do. We have been participating in anti-piracy operations from 2008 onwards. We have deployed 24/7. So we have been deploying a ship continuously. So as of today, I would say about 106 ships have been there in rotation over the last so many years to provide security and escort the merchant vessels and so on. Since 2016 or so, we have been involved in Ops Sankalp, which was to assess the ships which are transiting in the Persian Gulf, because there were threats of attack and so on. So we have been deploying a ship there continuously. So now with this current situation where the post the Israel-Hamas conflict, the attacks on essentially Israeli-owned vessels has gone up substantially. If you look at the last 1 year, I would say there have been attacks. I would say maybe one attack in about 2 months or so. But since about in the 45-50 days since end of November, we have seen exponential increase in the number of attacks. So we have counted more than 40 to 43 attacks, drone attacks, and these are clearly evident in two distinct locations. One is the Red Sea, where we have seen about 15 reported attacks and many more near misses, and some which have not been reported at all, and so on. Okay. And the rest of the attacks have happened in the North Arabian Sea to the Central Arabian Sea. So, and at the same time, this anti-piracy operations were ongoing since 2008. I would say it had really tapered off. In the sense, while we were present there, hardly any piracy attacks used to happen. Now, suddenly in 2023, last year, towards the end of the last year, we found that maybe taking advantage of this, the disturbance
Conflict.
happening, because of the Houthi attacks, the piracy also suddenly got, resumed. So there was that first attack on, successful attack on a merchant ships where, of course, INS Chennai was able to reach there, but the owners didn't want us to board and, take out the pirates. So they were finally escorted. We rescued one of the injured personnel, and he was landed at Salalah and so on. But the second one, the Leela Norfolk, was a classic case where the owners of the company decided that we must. They gave us permission to board. So I just want to put on record also that with the passing of the Anti-Piracy Act of 2023, it has been a great 2022. It has been a great enabler for the maritime forces to visit, board, search and seize any vessel suspected of piracy triggers or involved in piracy acts, etc. Very few countries have got this, and it's to the credit of our country and our government that we've been able to get this through. So it now strengthens our hand, and using this we have decided that we will be proactive, and we will see that this piracy is rolled back towards the Somali coast. So we have deployed adequate number of assets there. And in the case of this Leela Norfolk, when the crew saw this, the pirates firing at them and then boarding them, they all went into the shelter and locked themselves inside. So there were 21 crew out of 15 Indians, and the rest were Filipinos. One crew unfortunately got left out and he went and hid somewhere else in the ship. And then they asked for assistance. So Chennai, which was close by, about 450 miles or so, was diverted immediately. We put a PATI, which was diverted to go to the scene, speak to them. We then launched MQ-9B also to give coverage, and in the meantime we kept communicating with the crew and as well as warning the pirates. So by morning, this happened sometime in the evening around 1700 or so, and by the next day afternoon, INS Chennai had established RV with the vessel, and immediately they launched some Marcos who went on board, sanitized from top to bottom, and they found that the pirates had either left, probably that night or so, and then they rescued the crew and set the vessel in motion. So they cleared the ship of any likely IEDs or explosives and so on, and then they set the vessel off.
I do want to talk about the Houthi problem, though, because that is in a way linked to the conflict, the Israel-Hamas conflict as well, and that has added a new dimension to those shipping lanes because they are narrow, they are critical. I believe almost 60% of the world's maritime commercial traffic passes through those very narrow sea lanes. What is your understanding as to how how long that threat will persist and how it can be neutralized? And I come back to that point about how is it just Israeli ships, or is it even ships that are of third-party countries like India or Indian crew that are under the target of the Houthis?
I would like to say that as of so far, the ships which have been attacked have largely been Israeli linked or Israeli owned, or some linkage with Israel or some Israeli company. No Indian flagged vessel has been attacked by the Houthis. Of course, some of these vessels which have been attacked did have Indian crew on board, which is the case normally with any vessel. You will find a certain number of Indian crew on board. So far, actually, no Indian vessel has been targeted by the Houthis. But it is interesting that the dimensions of the conflict, if you look at it. Firstly, I would say there is a systematic alignment of the asymmetric forces against nation states. That's one thing which is coming out in this. Like something is happening, and asymmetric forces are now aligning against the nation states, against over the coalition, the US-led coalition, and so on. Second, I would say is that they are trying to now influence operations on land by carrying out activities at sea. Third, of course, that trying to raise the cost of trade, to interdict the trade, so that international community will be forced to probably mediate, etc. Then the ingenious use of technology, drone technology, use of mass deception, mass communication to the cognitive affect the cognitive ideas of people, and inject thoughts which are suitable for these people. And last but not the least, I would say that the asymmetry between the cost of attack and the cost of counterattack is something that is amazing now. When you see a cheap drone, you want to counter it, you fire a surface to air missile on it, which is cost probably 10 times the cost of that, or even more than that. So this is very interesting dynamics there, and I don't see it subsiding very quickly. I would say it is fragile in many ways, and we need to be very careful and we need to watch. But I think if we are very clear as the Indian Navy that we need to ensure that the Indian Ocean region is safe and secure and stable, and we are not going to permit any disturbance. So that is why we are now deployed in adequate numbers. We have 2 operations ongoing. One is the anti-piracy operations, where about 3 ships are deployed, and we have another 6 to 8 units focused on this anti-drone operation. So we have had about 4 attacks in that in this area as well, and we've been able to assist the ships. There have been no loss of life or anything. There has been damage to the ship. We have taken the ship to port, cleared it of explosives, carried out debris analysis and so on. It's very clear that these are drone attacks. Where it has come from, as to what is the origin or which country, etc., is still under examination.
You have mentioned this in the past as well, and this is a problem, I guess, that has been faced in the other services as well, that the future seems to be drone warfare. You just mentioned about how even in the latest instance with the Houthis, most of the attacks were drones. So how is the Navy preparing for that? And 2, if you can give us an update on the MQ-9s. You mentioned the MQ-9s were used in one of these operations. There was an announcement made when the Prime Minister went to the US for the state visit. What is the progress on that?
Yeah. So, firstly, we have been using drones for quite some time now. We've been using the RPAs for at least 20 years, the searchers first and then the herons and so on. And we are aware that the drones bring a lot of advantage where, firstly, if it's a dull, repetitive or dangerous task, then we can use drones to undertake these things. And we have also recently inducted a male RPA, the Starliner or Drishti 10, which has been made in India with 60% indigenous content, along with Elbit, who are the OEMs for that. And the future, I would say, the MQ-9B is being processed. It has again got the AON, and there are 31 MQ-9Bs which are being procured, 16 for the land and 15 for the sea use. So it's a joint case which is being led by the Navy now, and we are awaiting the response from the cost and other details from the US side. It will be processed under the FMS route. And we are quite hopeful. It will take time for it to get inducted. But in the meantime, the Navy has been operating, 2 MQ-9Bs on lease for the last 3 years, and we are now pursuing a case to extend it for another 4 years or so till the time the first ones, are bought and can be operated in India. So we found them very useful. They got tremendous endurance, tremendous reach, and the type of payloads they carry. The inputs you get, it helps you build up the maritime domain awareness substantially. So all in all, we find it very, very useful. And this Drishti 10 as well is a male. Male is medium altitude, long endurance RPA as compared to the Hail, which is a high altitude, long endurance. So their speeds are different, and the Hail can travel further and stay longer, while the male can travel a little lesser distance and stay longer there. They bring in a lot of capabilities. So we are working on a combination of these to ensure adequate MDA in the Indian Ocean region.
I do want to talk about the Indian Ocean region, because recently you've seen the statements from the government of the Maldives There are about 80 odd Indian military personnel who are there. Are there any naval personnel? Have you got any sort of indications, communication, either from the government of India or from the Maldivian government to the naval personnel who are stationed there about leaving the Maldives?
There are, we have had long-term relationship with the Maldives military, especially the Maldives Coast Guard. We've been training them, we've been supporting them in capability development, capacity building, infrastructure projects, as well as a large number of them come for training in thing. We do exercise like exercise Ekta and all. It's been going on for quite some time. Now, so there is extensive cooperation, with them, and even as we speak, there are many of them doing courses in India in our own establishments. So that's an ongoing process. Now, with the change stance, between the governments, if they, want us to de-intact, etc., it's a policy of the government. If whatever our government says, we'll do that. You're right. We have about 80 odd personnel there, not purely from the Navy, but from Coast Guard as well. And some from HAL and who are providing support to the two Dornier aircraft, the ALH, and the ships or boats which we have assisted them with. So it's ongoing. So we await instructions, whatever is the decision.
So
of the
far,
government.
there's been no communication or intimation from the government on removal of
No, we're not
so
before.
far. Keeping in that, and I guess some of this is because of the growing influence of China in the Indian Ocean region. What do you make of that, and what is the Indian Navy doing to try and not curtail, but restrict the growing influence of China? We saw some of that in Sri Lanka some years ago. That has now naturally changed. Now I guess we're seeing more of that in Maldives, including this research vessel, I believe, which is on its way to Malé. How concerned is the Indian Navy about the nature of this research vessel and its proximity to Indian territorial waters?
Well, China has been in the Indian Ocean region since 2008. Every year they have nearly, a constant presence of about anything between 6 to 8 ships in the Indian Ocean region. They also have, a couple or more research vessels operating here. They have a large fleet of fishing vessels which operate here. So I would say, the oceans are free, open and inclusive, and every nation is free to pursue its legitimate, interests. So long as it does not infringe on, others' national interests. And China has been looking for, energy, for markets, for resources, for, precious metals or metals and rare earths and so on. So it's they have been engaging with countries in the littorals for all these things. So the research vessels essentially have been operating in the international waters, which they are free to actually do so.
Yeah.
And they have also been invited by some of the nations like Sri Lanka or Bangladesh to do survey for them in their waters. So either they have a joint survey carried out, or it is it's as per the invitation of the host government. But our concern has been that it should not affect our EEZ or our interests, and this we keep a close watch on, and we try to see what is we keep them under surveillance to see what they're up to and what they're doing, and and we factor it in our planning process in development of capability.
Because I believe recently there was also a hydrographic project with the Maldives, which again was called off. So is there a concern that the Maldives is probably allowing or using China to enter those spaces which traditionally they have asked India to operate on when it comes to cooperation on?
We have been cooperating with most of the Indian Ocean region countries, whether it is Kenya, Tanzania, Mauritius, Seychelles, Maldives, Myanmar, so with all these countries we've been, assisting them in hydrographic survey. Why hydrographic survey is very important? Because it is like, ensuring that you can do safe navigation in these waters. Because the corals grow, rocks, there may be rocks, there may be wrecks, etc. So regular surveys required, and many of the surveys in these in the Indian Ocean region have been carried out by the British, and many of the surveys are more than 50 years, 60 years old. And as a matter of fact, you need to keep updating them. Otherwise, one of your merchant ships may run aground and cause pollution, which will affect the ecology as well as the tourism and so on. So it may cause a lot of damage. So this is what we have been hopping on. We have been trying to. We have prepared many charts for these countries. So what we do is we send our ship on the request of the government or the host government. Then we do a joint survey. The data is collected and then it is translated into a chart. And then the chart is sold jointly with the proceeds being shared between the the countries involved. So it has been a successful project, and there was a MOU with the Maldives government which was there till I think end of middle of this year. So perhaps they don't want to renew it. We'll discuss with them to see what is the way ahead.
All right. As I come to the concluding part of this this interview, I believe very soon there will be next month multilateral naval exercises involving a whole host of countries. Is India and the Indian Navy also now sort of projecting power far away from its shores in a way, because this is the game that major powers seem to be playing, whether it is in the East and South China Seas, in the Indian Ocean region. Tell us a little bit more. I believe it's called Milan. Milan. So tell us a little bit more.
See, Milan
what is the idea behind this?
The Milan is the largest exercise that we have been hosting. It's a biennial exercise. Last was done in 2022 February. We hold it off at Visakhapatnam. It has got a harbour face and a sea face. And the theme this time is cohesion, collaboration, camaraderie. And where does it emanate from? It emanates from our doctrine of Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, which is articulated by the Honorable Prime Minister. And therefore, based upon this, we invite them, as I would say the largest resident naval power in the Indian Ocean region. The numbers have been growing steadily. This time we have invited more than close to 60 countries, and we expect about at least 50 naval delegations or units to participate. About 18 ships and one maritime patrol aircraft are expected to arrive for the Milan, apart from our own ships, aircraft and submarines. It's got a harbour face and a sea face. In the harbour face, there is a seminar, there are discussions, there are cultural exchanges. We expose them to the Indian culture, the Indian food, and our thought processes and things like that. And then we go to sea, and at sea we exercise different types of exercises, whether it is VBSS or the maritime interdiction operations, anti-surface operations, anti-submarine operations, anti-air operations, and so on. And then it's about 3 days there, and then we have some group photography and good bonhomie, and then we disperse. So how does it help? It helps in improving interoperability, understanding each other's mind, and there are subject matter expert exchanges, and the whole idea is to build up trust and to remain a relevant and trustworthy partner in the Indian Ocean region, so that you can engage with all the friendly foreign countries.
How is it just an expanded sort of version of what you have with the Quad countries? For example, you have the Malabar Exercises, or is the intensity and the depth of the engagement there much higher than what you will be having for this?
See, the Malabar exercise has been on for more than 30 years now, and it has evolved over a period of time. And when it started, it was very, very basic, and from there it is, gradually it has got SOPs made, and it has become, more and more complex. And I would say it is one of the most complex exercises that we do, because it involves, anti-submarine exercise, dissimilar air combat tactics, and so on. So there are carrier battle groups involved, and so on. So therefore, it has reached a very high level of interoperability and complexity. We have not reached that stage yet, because Milan is a recent phenomena. About the fourth, fifth Milan that we are having of this scale. Milan used to be there earlier, which used to be conducted in Port Blair, but that was just very few navies used to come for that. The regional navies used to come. So now from there it has grown. So on this scale, it will take time for it to become more and more complex and to reach the scale of say Malabar or so.
And finally, Admiral, you're reaching the end of your tenure as we're reaching the end of this interview. How has this honor been for you to lead the Indian Navy, and what next?
It's been a great honor and a privilege to lead the Indian Navy. I feel satisfied that I could bring in a lot of changes, transformational changes in line with the national ethos and what's happening at the national level. So much of transformation is happening. So in the same spirit, we could enthuse the Navy towards Atmanirbharta, towards aligning with the various initiatives of the Government of India Abhiyans, whether it's Nari Shakti or Digital India, smart cities. We adopted it as smart ships, and a whole lot of initiatives like Puneet Sagar Abhiyan, in which we have participated. So we have been trying to do a job at sea, and at the same time remained aligned with the initiatives of the Government of India, so that while Rashtra Suraksha is a job, we are also contributing to nation building in that same effort. So it has been very satisfying, many transformational changes we could bring in, especially taking out this Gulami Mansikta se Mukti, which has been reiterated time and again by our national leadership. But we, because of this mindset, we never changed it and we kept continuing with it. And now what a wonderful flag we have, dating back to our, linking back to our heritage. And we have adopted the octagon, which is from the Rajmudra of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. And that same thing we are now translated into the epaulets of the flag officers as well. We have removed the baton, which people used to carry as a symbol of authority. Earlier it made sense, the Raj Danda and Sengol and all that, but they have now got their place, whether in the parliament or just keep it as a symbol. But we want now our leadership to be more, to lead by example, lead by a professionalism, and lead a people by a capability, not by a danda. So we expect a transformed leadership in the Navy. So even in the epaulets there used to be a baton. So we removed the baton and put a telescope in place, so that leadership should have vision, should be able to see far and take your organization in that direction. So that is what we are looking at.